You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Chris Vermeulen. His website is thegoldanoilguy.com. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim. Great to be here.
You've been keeping your eye on the transportation index. What's it telling you?
Well, yeah, I keep my eye on a lot of different sectors and groups of stocks. And last year we saw, just to jump back for 1 second, last year we saw the Russell 2000 index go into a very sideways channel with lots of distribution selling going on. And that's usually one of the first sectors of groups that really start to show weakness before, say, the U.S. stock market goes into a bear market. And the next one that kind of really follows, that's a little shorter term, that gets you a little more pinpointed to a time when the market's there's weakness in the economy, is the transportation index. And really the last about 4 or 5 months here in the transportation index, we've been seeing some pretty heavy distribution, lots of selling going on. It's been trading in a sideways range, forming somewhat of a topping formation. And if right now is trading at a key support zone, that if it breaks this level, then it could be lights out for the market. It could be the first real early warning sign that there's some pretty big economic changes coming and stock market prices should start to plummet, and that could trigger a pretty big landslide going forward.
When you're looking at transportation, what are you looking at specifically? Is it railways, what they're shipping, ships, what they're carrying? I was wondering what about the airline industry? Are they doing okay with lower fuel prices?
Yeah, obviously the airline industry definitely benefits from lower oil prices, fuel prices, but the transportation index that I follow is the IYT. It's the transportation ETF. And it has a basket of pretty much all those things in it. So it gives you a really broad picture across the board of what general transportation is doing. So it's kind of the whole basket, and with that whole basket slowly shifting from a nice rising market it's been in for a long time to this sideways, heavy volume distribution selling pattern, it looks as though it's about to crack to the downside, and that will be the first real kind of punch that the market gives investors, or at least a red flag that this is it. We've probably only got a month or two left before we see the equities market, the SP 500, the Dow, those things start to really crack to the downside and pick up speed and kickstart a new bear market. So I also look at the global markets. There's an ETF out there that called, the symbol is GWL. It actually holds a basket of all the global equities, excluding U.S. equities. And this market is already broken to the downside. It's got the 150-day moving average trending lower. It's been more or less forming a very bearish pattern the last about 6 months here, and it looks as though everything here is on the verge of a major breakdown. So the overseas markets, I think, are much weaker than there's a couple sweet spots of strong areas overseas, but overall the stock markets in general are looking really weak here and on the verge of starting their first leg down into a bear market. I have a feeling we're gonna start to see the breakdown start to happen probably around the May mark. I think we're really still a little bit of a distance away from some key support zones, but overall we're within a month or two they could easily be breached, and that could be, the trigger, the timing. Everything seems to be unfolding for some time through May that we could easily be breaking down and seeing the stock market, have this first kind of collapse in price. And of course, the first collapse in a bear market, in a bull market that we're in right now, really the average investor start to drool. They say, look at these cheap prices, like we can finally get in at a great price. And they're the ones who kind of hold prices over for a while, and we see consolidation and a breather. But if you know what to look for in the market, you look at the market breadth, how many stocks are actually rising in the market. When it does rise, are there fewer and fewer stocks rising? Because what we're seeing right now are fewer and fewer stocks are going up in value while the overall stock market continues to go up. So the market is going up on weaker and weaker demand. Eventually that is going to collapse, and it's simply, I think, the masses of investors who are very bullish. They're seeing their accounts at new highs after the big sell-off there in 2008, and people just keep buying and buying and buying. And really, the institutions look as though they're slowly unloading large positions into these average investors who are becoming overly greedy, and they just keep buying. So that's going to come to a bitter end sooner than later, I think.
U.S. gasoline demand was up 6% in January, but was that just because of the low prices and also it was very cold?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a good rally. Just simply, people are trying to bottom pick. I think we're seeing prices have a bounce. I think a lot of investors and traders in crude oil have been accumulating a lot of positions there, expecting prices to go back up. I think this is more or less a bounce that isn't going to be lived for very long. I think this is just a bounce. We're going to see it start to fade back down and test those recent lows. Really, overall, I think we're going to see gas and oil prices flounder here for months, and this could drag out easily to the end of 2015. And most people, I don't think, are really expecting that. I think everybody that I talk to, especially the average investor on the street, they're all like, oh, oil's going to bounce. There's no way it can hold this. It's going to go right back up. We can't get it out of the ground for any less than $72 a barrel, so it's got to come back up. So if everybody's expecting it to bounce and go higher, it's probably not. And the way that the oil rigs, everything seems to be slowly closing up. They're capping off all kinds of wells. This is a very lengthy process, takes 6 to 8 weeks to unfold. And the record amount of places closing up and trimming back staff and production is huge. So I think we're going to see a lot of unwinding, a lot of negative news in the energy industry, and we're going to see oil and gas prices probably flounder and possibly even still make new lows over the next 6 months. Which
would be very unusual because usually over the summer is when we see the highest prices for gasoline.
Usually, yeah, but nothing always happens.
You were mentioning that not only are land-borne rigs right now being hit with a lot of closures, but the guys out on the ocean are also being told you're going to have to pack up.
Yeah, I've heard some talks from some people who work on the rigs, and they've been talking about a huge group of ocean rigs that are closing up. They're working on closing and capping their wells, but it's an extremely long process. It takes them 6 to 8 months for some of them to close up. And of course, when they close up a rig, there's a lot of them, either staff and management. All that stuff is going to have to slowly unwind, and we could see a lot of jobs being let go going forward here.
And I was wondering, too, looking forward a couple of years from now when hopefully the business picks up, is that how are they going to get trained staff to return? Because until the downturn in the oil patch, they were having trouble finding people. Will it be even worse once the tail end baby boomers start to retire and not come back?
Yeah, for sure. I think it'll be the problem where, say you've been at a rig for years and you're getting older and you finally have 2 or 3 years off. You finally turned your life focus from the oil rigs or the energy sector. Now you've got some new jobs, some new focus. You're moving forward. And then when all these oil companies call back, say, hey, listen, we're opening up the wells. We're going to restaff all this stuff, get rolling. I think there's going to be a very large group of people saying, you guys let me go. I've got a new direction with my life. Do I really want to go out there and live, that it's a pretty extreme lifestyle working in the oil and industry, out on rigs or out in fields, wherever it is you're doing. It is pretty extreme. You're generally in the middle of nowhere, and you can't really live, a life with family and friends. You're always out in isolation. So I think they will have a lot of troubles getting a very large group of their workers back when they do open up.
And if that's the case, when prices start to go up again, they really could go up.
Yeah, exactly. Prices, everything can just as quickly as something goes down, it can go straight back up. And of course, something that goes straight down and then bases what crude oil and all these things, the energy sector is going to do for a while, as it trades sideways and kind of falls out of favor and everybody kind of gives up on that. Eventually, you're going to see a massive move because it's going to be hard for people to get back into that sector, for everything to get ramped back up, and there's going to be huge demand, and eventually you see a huge bull market in that sector. So everything kind of goes in waves, and the longer the oil industry here stays underwater and struggles, the bigger the rally will be later.
We'll have more with Chris Vermeulen right after this.
More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600. 604-699-8600.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Vermeulen, his website, thegoldandoilguy.com. Chris, what's the outlook for natural gas right now?
Natural gas has been selling off for quite a while here. Really, last winter we saw that huge price spike in natural gas, and pretty much since then we've seen it kind of fade all the way back down to actually new lows here in natural gas. We had a little bit of a bump there this year in November, but it's back down into a full-blown kind of bear market. It's been selling off and grinding out this bottoming formation. It's trying to make a bottom, but overall there's just so much of it, and there just doesn't seem to be a lot of demand. And now that we're coming into spring and summer, I think we could easily see natural gas kind of really underperform here for some time. We'll get the occasional blip, but I don't see natural gas really having any real life to it for some time.
When do you think it will start to come back?
Probably late fall. We'll have to see how the price action unfolds and what type of events happen. Obviously, it's to look through the summer. Who knows what's going to unfold? But I think we'll see natural gas probably trading slightly higher or the similar price, right into fall this year.
I was going to say too, with natural gas, it doesn't seem to be affected as much as oil is when it comes to geopolitics.
Right. Yeah. It is a little bit shielded from that or out of that realm.
What's happening in the gold market? Gold
and silver, the story for those hasn't really changed in a while. They continue to struggle. They get these nice little bounces, these nice little rallies, but they are very short-lived. Sellers just step right back into the market. They've been in a downtrend for a couple years, and they still continue to make lower highs and lower lows. And really, it's just a dead investment at this point. It's trying to find a bottom, which it has yet to find. Gold miners aren't performing very well. Usually they lead the gold market. It's just a really dead market. The sentiment in the gold area is the weakest I've ever seen it. Nobody is really wanting to get involved in gold or gold stocks. And, the gold companies are all very skittish. They're all tightening up on what they're doing. It's just a really poor, more or less sentiment for it, which is great long term. I don't think it's bottomed yet, but these are the times you do want to slowly start to invest in, but I just don't think the bottom for gold or silver is in yet. We need to see some life, some big volume moving into them. We need to see gold miners start to show some serious life, that investors are starting to rotate into it. We haven't got to that point yet.
Tough times still in the oil patch. Gold is flat. What do you tell investors right now to do with their money if they're interested in those two things?
I think the best thing to do, it really depends on your outlook. If you're a long-term investor, I think you could dabble and add a little bit to your portfolio at these levels, but really all you want to do is just take a tiny little handful and sit back, because really if the equities market here rolls over, which I think it will, then the best bet is to do nothing. It's to maybe put your money in bonds for a little while, because equities in general, I think, are going to completely collapse here, and you can buy them back at half price, at 80% lower valuation. I think there's huge potential to get them down the road at a much lower price, and really just waiting here for the market to correct. And when the broad market does correct, it's going to hurt gold, it's going to hurt silver, it's going to hurt energy. When there is mass fear in selling in the market, almost everything goes down. You look at gold, go look at oil when the U.S. stock market collapsed, and everything sold off together. When people want their money and they're scared, they sell everything. They don't care what it is. Fear is the most powerful force in the financial market, and it's also very fast moving. So I think we're going to have great times ahead as long as you keep gunpowder for down the road. And, we're talking a year, 2 years down the road, there'll be some amazing opportunities to get into equities, and I think sooner than that we'll see opportunities to get into energy and gold, because they will start to firm up and start to rally before the equities market does.
Chris, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
Hey, no problem, Jim. Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Chris Vermeulen. His website is thegoldandoilguy.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com Radio. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. You can find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Comments about the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com Radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com Radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.